ask people that are in those jobs, how meaningful is your work? What could we do to make it more purposeful? And I think people will be very surprised by the outcome of that.
Welcome to the Fearless Foodie, the podcast that gets honest about what it really takes to thrive in food and retail. I'm Amy Wilkinson, coach, speaker and trusted partner to food industry teams with lived experience of the pace, pressure and politics that come with the job. Fearless Foodies cut through the fluff and get straight to what actually helps. And that's exactly what we're here to do. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Fearless Foodie Podcast. I am joined once again with Bethan Grylls from Food Manufacture. She was allowed back. And we're already giggling before we've started. So, you know, we'll be professional as ever. As professional as we ever are. That's probably the best way to put it. But Bethan, you wanted to talk today, didn't you, about leading from the bottom, which I was really intrigued about. But this came from various conversations you've been having, hasn't it?
It has. A lot of people have commented on my gait. No. I had to make that joke. It has. It's a massive trend. I've been seeing it. And what we mean by leading from the bottom is actually leadership from a flat structure, a flat hierarchy, essentially. And there are links with the previous episode that we co-hosted, Amy. And it's about, as a leader, asking questions, but also not looking at yourself as someone that is above anyone else and really empowering your team. And it's been a massive trend. I've seen a lot of people talking about this, and actually there's some really powerful research from McKinsey that shows when you have, and I'll tell how this all links, but when you have meaningful work, it boosts performance by a third, so 33%. It increases commitment by 75%, and it reduces turnover by 49%. And we all know that as a sector, we have a labour issue. You know, it is improving. So FDF data, their Q4 2024 data, showed that labour shortages in food and drink have dropped to 3.6% from 5.1% in Q3, but it's still significantly above other sectors. And of that, frontline roles are the hardest to fill.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and actually the hardest, well, I don't know if I'm making an assumption here, and I possibly am from my own, perspective and bias, is it must be hard in a manufacturing environment to make that, you said the word meaningful work. Obviously it's meaningful. I don't want to, I'm hesitating in what I'm saying because I'm clearly the frontline workers, it is totally meaningful because they're the one that put the food on the nation's plates ultimately. But actually the job itself can be quite repetitive and, might not feel that way. So there's got to be a link there with that in terms of making people or helping people in those positions to feel like it's more meaningful work.
Yeah, and I mean, you can be doing really meaningful work. So, helping put food on people's plates. But if you're very siloed and you're not being asked about your thoughts or how you can improve something, and you're saying, this is one thing that's, if we did it like this, it would be so much easier, but no one's going to listen to me. No one asks me. It makes you feel really unmotivated. It makes you feel like there's not a purpose, particularly because these departments are so siloed. You're not then part of the wider strategy. You then go, well, how does, some people might not, well, yes, of course, they know that they're part of that, but they're not linking it to that wider picture. And obviously then there are perceptions from other people outside the sector that is not meaningful work. And there's a whole probably other podcast there where we've got an image problem, haven't we, that we've got to address.
Yeah.
But the reason why I've linked this to leading from the bottom is because you can create meaningful work by leading from the bottom. And it was first sort of came to my attention when I hosted a webinar earlier this year, and we had speakers from Red Zone, CCEP, ARDA and Green Corps. And they were all talking about how do you motivate frontline workers. And a big aspect of that was talking about how making shop floor workers feel equally valued, like they're part of the wider strategy and part of the whole team, and building a sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things here was, and I think it was Fran Bull who said it from Arla, is that younger workers in particular, they seek a connection to the broader company strategy. So if they are in a line of work and they don't have an awareness of what's going on around them, you're going to lose them.
Yeah. It's that we hear it all the time, like Gen Z as a, like stereotype, but they want to feel more of a sense of purpose and understanding of why they're doing what they're doing, and aren't just willing to just be, given a set of tasks and that's it. It's like a better, I think it's part of that feeling connected to it all, connected and having that greater understanding. And I know something that we talked about in the past loads is that having that connection to the bigger picture and understanding the bigger picture is more important to people than it used to be. Because I think as well, as sorry, and another thing,
the grandparents, they didn't care. They were like, yeah, whatever.
No, I'm not saying that people didn't care, but I think, I am a previous generation. It's not that they didn't care. It's just that the motivations were different motivations.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I also think there's a want to progress much quicker as well, among the younger generation. But I just thought it was really, really fascinating concept. And we spoke about some really interesting ways to motivate those frontline workers. And I recently went to a big conference. So it was Generis who put on the European Manufacturing Summit, and they had asked me to MC for it.
Sorry, I'm giggling.
I wasn't standing up there rapping. Just sitting out some
Bethan on the mic.
This is why we got a problem. I'm not going to rap. Oh dear, my reputation.
You had an amazing reputation until you came on the Fearless Foodie Podcast. Anyway, sorry. So you were like chairing it, basically.
Yes, I was chairing it.
Yes, that sounds much more professional, Bethan.
It does, and it was such a great opportunity. So, did I see any of Dusseldorf? No, just the airport and hotel. But it was wonderful. I met loads of amazing people and introduced some really, really wonderful people, and got to listen to all of their talks. We're talking about people from senior leaders from Mars and Hello Fresh, and notably Friesland Campina. So David Cutter really stood out for me at Friesland Campina because he's this beautiful quote about leading from the bottom, and that shop floor is the most important part of the business, and he is very happy to say he's the least important, as part of that senior leadership team. And I thought that was just a really refreshing approach, and it really fed into the strategies that these leaders in the webinar that are hosted were talking about. They're talking about empowering the teams and creating meaningful work and listening to them. And it's exactly the same as what David was saying. And I don't know if it's something that you're seeing in the sector, Amy, but
yeah, I think that it's almost having that humility as part of your leadership and seeing I think there's a real thing in terms of, they call it like servant leadership, but basically seeing yourself as in service to your teams as opposed to less hierarchical. It's like, actually, your job as a leader is to make everybody else's life easier, is to empower your teams. It is not to do or to tell people what to do. So it's much more, I love it because it's much more of that coaching approach. Like, what do you think we should do? Not, I think you should do X, Y, and Z. And don't get me wrong, there is a need for both. Like when it comes to things like health and safety. We ain't like, but well, having said that,
what do you think we should do? It's a great learning moment. What do you think we should do? Boss, I don't know. I just think you should just call someone.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's certain things. However, having said that, and this comes back to, we talked about it in the other episode that you co-hosted with, it comes back to that psychological safety thing, because actually the environments where you see the most improvement in health and safety stats is where you have more people reporting near misses. So actually being able to empower your teams to be able to admit that there is a problem or to call out things that aren't right actually leads to better outcomes from a safety perspective. And the same will be true from a manufacturing perspective. So it is definitely something that I see being talked about more.
I have a really good stat about near misses. Can I rifle through some paperwork?
Yes, of course.
It's such a good stat. If you record 500 near misses, you'll avoid one accident.
Ah.
There you go.
What's your source? Where's the source of your stat?
Source? What's that? Yes,
she's a journalist. It's a secret source.
It is actually a secret source.
Okay.
It's from. I'm sure they wouldn't mind me saying, but it's from Business Leaders Forum, and we were having a discussion around health and safety, and a very reputable source told me this stat, and I just thought, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There's my stat. I've given you loads of stats.
You have given me loads of stats this week. I love it. So what were some of the things that they talked about in terms of like people listening? What were the actual like tangible things that the speakers and at the conference and the people that you've spoken to in the sector that could be transferable to other businesses that you are allowed to share?
Yeah, so at this event, at the Generis event, David was saying around what he noticed was the culture, they'd previously hidden their mistakes. So it was a case of going, if something went wrong, instead of asking for help, link back to the previous episode, they were going, I'll fix it. And the danger with that, obviously, is that you can't always fix it yourself, or you end up going, I have to ask for help, and you leave it too long. And that's about embedding confidence and trust within the team. So they had to create this new mindset that mistakes are okay, and they should be addressed openly. And because they wanted to learn from, I hate saying leading from the bottom, because it's not at all, but it's just, they wanted to learn from different departments as leaders. So they had to create an environment where those teams felt they could trust their leaders to offer them new ideas, but also to say, oh, I've made a mistake. And in this, how do we then fix it? And so they created this whole new mindset around mistakes are okay, should be addressed openly. And they ended up removing all of the, what they call the yellow. So all of those basically sitting on the fence neutral options from their progress tracking.
Okay, so like the amber, yellow kind of mid. Yeah. It's okay, because I know, like, from years of having trackers, like in MPD teams and stuff like that, it's almost like the safe, well, we haven't really done it, but we're not going to actually admit it. We're not going to put it onto a red, because that would be a little bit confrontational.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, time to give a quick shout out to the people making this podcast happen. These are the brilliant sponsors backing bold, fearless conversations like this one. Let's hear from them. Ensuring food safety and quality is crucial. That's why businesses trust Microsearch Laboratories, part of the IFP Labs group. UCAS accredited Microsearch offers microbiological, nutritional and allergen testing for food, drink and water, delivering fast results and expert support. With over 30 years of experience, trusted by leading manufacturers and retailers, and a commitment to sustainability, Microsearch is your partner in product safety. Visit micro-search.co.uk to learn more. Want to build a high-performing team that doesn't shy away from the tough stuff? Our team coaching goes beyond away days. It creates the space for honest conversations, stronger collaboration and shared accountability. Especially powerful for stretched teams who need to reset, refocus and move forward together. Find out how it could work for your team at fearlessfoodies.co.uk. And we're back. Let's dive right in.
But what he was saying was that, and this was sort of the first part of the strategy, was going, right, where are we making mistakes? Where can the teams then teach us? Because everyone had like different, ways of doing things and obviously new ideas, etc. And a lot of people would just put it on this amber, yellow, neutral option. And what he was saying was actually, you can't really be sat on the fence. You're either off track or you're on track. You're either red or you're green. And what they created, one of the hardest things they had to do was create this different mindset of going, red is bad. Because we're taught red is bad, aren't we? It means stop, it means danger. There's so many negative connotations around it. And they went, red equals action. And it was just a whole new way of thinking about it and going, actually, this is how we improve. We're working on things. We're not perfect. And it was a whole new way of working. They called it our way of working. And there were other bits to it as well. So, they said when they had consultants come in, not to let the consultant take over, to always have that element of control. But it was just such a fascinating way of reframing it. Yeah. And I just loved the fact he was talking about, just because you're making mistakes or not there is not a sign of failure. But the other interesting thing that they did around the strategy was they set really ambitious targets. So, and I'm in two minds about this, Amy, because I understand what they're doing, because, setting ambitious targets, aim high. But I also, there's part of me that's like, oh, if you've got a really high gatepost and you don't hit it, then what do you do there? Do you keep it the same? Do you move it up? Do you move it down? Because it can be quite demoralizing if you're not, as a team, if you're not hitting your targets.
Yeah, I sort of get the principle, because actually, if I do loads of stuff around mindset and stuff, and a growth mindset is always, we'll learn from our mistakes, and you're always striving for more and all of that. But I do think if you never hit your targets, it can feel a bit crappy. Yeah. But I guess it's, if where you do hit is celebrated, do you know what I mean? Like, as long as, I think that's part of our old mentality, isn't it? It's the old fashioned way of, you're going to get beaten up because you haven't hit a target. So we ultimately have that reaction. But
I never had that. Sorry.
I don't mean, just to be clear, I've never been physically reprimanded in the workplace. Not that I remember.
I thought you were referring to, like my, the steel rulers. I'm
not that old, Beth. I am old enough to say that in my early career, I have worked with operations people that have thrown things across the room in anger. That doesn't happen anymore. It's now just, rather, I often say this in training courses, the aggression that you used to see, like that was like the early noughties, that isn't acceptable anymore. So what you get instead is passive aggressiveness.
I've worked with people in previous roles where that's happened. And someone's chucked something across the
I mean, how can anybody think that's acceptable?
Yeah, no. You just sort of, I didn't say anything. I just sort of sat there quite just sort of shocked.
Yeah. Well, you don't, do you? Like, and people are like, oh, you should call those things out. And like, in my fearless moments, that's what I would do. I would call it out. But sometimes you are a bit fearful in that, like it can be intimidating. I think particularly as a woman, if somebody's doing, like, physically showing their anger. Yeah. How have we got onto this subject? We're definitely not advocating this. But I think the point is, in the old world where it was hierarchical and it was rule with an iron rod, therefore it would feel scary to not hit a target, because like we're talking about like extremes. But even just a bit of passive aggressiveness, or you don't get your bonus, or you don't get a promotion, are all things. Like, I had years working in commercial, and, that's very KPI target driven in the same way operations is. So you would always be wanting to hit those targets. So I get it. Well, it would be good to hear from them, like, in the future, how it's worked for them, wouldn't it? Because I think it's a great idea. I just think, I don't know how evolved we are as a species to be able to accept failure that much.
Yeah, it will be really interesting to see how it sort of works. I mean, one of the other things that has been said to me is when you're sort of setting targets for teams, like frontline teams, for example, is also to have very clear targets. I mean, what do you think about people setting? You know, we're talking about this concept of leading from the bottom. And this isn't something someone suggested to me, but what do you think about people setting their own targets? Is that a bit like marking your own homework?
Well, I think I think it's a great idea. It's an interesting one because we're also having somebody else that's coming on the podcast talking about breaking workplace norms. And it's almost like that, you know, there was a big trend of like, you can have unlimited holidays. Like it works for the people that are, you know, have got the best of intentions, but it's like the lowest common denominator it doesn't work for. But I'm just thinking back to my years in commercial. So we kind of we tried to set our own targets. So you would always have to go with your budget. So this is what I think I'm going to be able to do next year. But you would always under-egg that because you're like, oh, I want to hit my target, so I'll get my bonus. So you usually got challenged and thought, well, what was the point of me doing this anyway? Because they've just stuck another couple $100,000 on it or a couple of million on top, and that I've got to get from somewhere. So I don't know if it's setting their own targets, but I think having input into what the reality of those targets is, because there's actually, I think, something really demotivating. If I think back to those commercial days, you used to get your budget, and if there was like a few million that you needed to fill, you'd automatically be thinking, oh my God, where am I going to get that from? And you'd be going, oh, well, we're just going to get the MPD team to do that. And then the MPD team are like, well, that's not realistic. How are we going to get all of that? And then, you know, everybody's just scrambling around, and that creates the silo thing.
And also creates the pointing the blame as well, which no one wants.
So I think with things like that, it's almost like, yes, bottom up is a good idea, but with a top down meet in the middle negotiation going on.
Corporate speak. What does that mean?
Well, I think because I do think like one of the biggest problems I see in businesses that I work with is, because I work with a lot of middle managers, is that you do have that. You're not very clear on what the business strategy is. And I'm talking like really big businesses, and it is not filtering down. And then some of the SMEs I work with, they're like, I don't know what the strategy is. And I'm thinking, I don't think there is one. You know, so I think, okay, I'll get rid of the corporate bullshit. Basically, you do need direction from the top, I think. But I think listening to the people at the bottom to help set that direction is the right way to do it.
You've just been journalist.
Oh, damn, she got me.
Finally. Yeah, no, I totally agree. You need direction. You do need leadership direction, but a good leader is someone that listens and takes direction from their team as well. Yeah.
And doesn't feel like it has to be my way or the highway. Like, actually, I think the best leaders are the ones that listen more than they talk a lot of the time, which is an interesting thing because I really like to talk so clearly. Yeah, but we both do listen. It's just, you know, maybe we could like shut up a little bit.
Yeah. All right, I'll take the seat back on. No, I think it's such an important point. I've lost my train of thought.
Well, we need to sum it up now, really.
I'm so offended.
By which bit?
All of it.
So, what do you want people to take away from this episode?
Make sure that you're listening to your teams. I think there's a massive value in having a flat structure, but equally, don't think you can pass everything on. You can't delegate everything. You've got to do your equal share. You've got to get hands-on, getting with the business, but you also need to empower people by asking them questions, by asking them, you know, well, how would you do this? How would you go about that? You know, I've heard about some really simple solutions being given that have resulted in massive efficiencies. You know, just a worker that was turning from one line to the other line. And that repetitive motion was causing, not only is that causing issues potentially to your back, your arms, etc., but it's also wasting time. And they were just saying, why don't we do this instead? Literally, we just move it here. And because you're not doing that job day in, day out, you don't see those solutions.
Yeah.
So my biggest take, this is very waffly, but my biggest takeaway is make sure that you listen more than you talk.
Yeah, no, I think there's something really in that. And I think one of the things I encourage people, particularly that are in support functions that aren't working in operations, for instance, in this example, is to go in and spend some time in the factory and actually doing the job on the line, because it makes such a difference to how you perceive things and how you think about things. Like I did 6 months running a sandwich line right at the beginning of my career, and then I had a bit of time in process development where you're scaling stuff up, so I was in the factory a lot, and I by no means would ever say that I've got any operational, well, I've got some operational skills, but within a completely different context now. But the appreciation of that, like for instance, being on a sandwich line and just having to put a piece of lettuce on by hand at speed, I could not do it. And actually, I think we undervalue how skilled some unskilled jobs are. And actually, I would encourage people listening to get their hands dirty and get on the line and see what it's like to do those jobs. Because I think it gives you an appreciation, it gives you an empathy, but you can actually build a relationship with the people that are doing the do.
Yeah, absolutely. And have a think about that work. Is it meaningful? How can you make it more meaningful? Ask people that are in those jobs, how meaningful is your work? What could we do to make it more purposeful? And I think people will be very surprised by the outcome of that.
Yeah, fabulous. Well, I hope you have found that interesting for those of you listening. And thank you, Bethan, again.
Oh, you're very
great. And get in touch with us. Let us know what's your experience of this concept of leading from the bottom, and has it sparked any thoughts for you in terms of the way you lead and what you're going to do differently? There's something else that just came to mind for me in terms of, I'm going to do another episode on this, in something called situational leadership and how we adapt our leadership style depending on the situation, because I think that could be really useful. So we'll do that next season. We'll talk about situational leadership at some point.
You may even ask me back. Who knows? Yeah.
Watch this space. See if she passes. Oh God, I just spat everywhere saying that. I think that shows a pass.
I think that shows I won't be coming back. I spit on you.
No, that's my enthusiastic face.
Okay.
And let us know. Come and speak to us on LinkedIn, and
we'll see.
I won't spit. I can't spit on you at LinkedIn. Luckily, we're not in the same room, so I've only spat on the mic.
That was me at the conference spitting on the mic.
Oh yeah. See, she got a bit of rapping in there.
Yeah.
Well, if nothing else, I hope you found it fun to listen to me and Beth talking, and I'll see you next time. But in the meantime, be bold, be brave, and be fearless. That's a wrap on this episode of The Fearless Foodie. If it hit home, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready for less fluff and more real talk. And if you're ready to build a bolder, braver, more brilliant team, come find me at fearlessfoodies.co.uk. Until next time, be bold, be brave, be fearless.